Let me tell you a story all about how Sweden had a woman prime minister for 7 hours who then abdicated. But basically, a few days ago, Sweden finally, 100 years after giving women the right to vote, got its first woman prime minister. Excitement was high, there was a lot of energy, a lot of celebrations, and then seven hours later, she stepped down. Speedrunning prime minister? Maybe. Not only getting the record for the first woman prime minister, but also for the shortest serving prime minister. It's quite the tactic there, collecting as many world records as you can. Regardless, I'm here to explain how that happened. And first, we need to do a bit of discussions about how the Swedish government works. So basically, there are two key things that the Swedish government votes on. They're very, they're pretty important, that are voted on. It's number one, the government, which what that means is who is going to be the prime minister, who is going to be in the different position, ministry positions. What would that be in the US? No, minister. It's the same there as well in the US. I think minister of health and whatever. That's part number one, who's running the government, who are the people in charge, okay? And then number two that they vote on is the budget, where money is allocated. And as per my understanding, the budget is voted on yearly, and the government, it's more fluid. That can kind of happen whenever, depending on whether or not people step down or get up or whatever. But then obviously every 4 years, they mix up the amount of votes and the amount of seats every party has, and that's going to influence who is going to be in the given government at the moment. So what happened? Well, because Stefan Löfven, which is Stefan, also known as Shebel, he was our previous prime minister in Sweden. And he stepped down. This is him. This is Stefan. He's very cute. Look at him. Pat, pat. Anyways, he stepped down. And because of that, they needed to re-vote for the government. And we were reaching towards the end of the year, so we need to re-vote on the budget as well. So at this moment, the existing coalition that was there before, the kind of center-left coalition, was like, okay, we're going to just put in a new social democratic leadership with some other ministers from the Green Party as well to bring everything together. And that was going to be the vote for the government. And they ran the vote for the government. All the parties voted together, and the center-left parties, and Magdalena Andersson, the woman president, the woman prime minister, Sweden's first, got elected there. So she was the prime minister. Wow. And then it was time for the budget vote. Now, the left party has been supporting this center-left coalition. However, they have not been allowed to receive much influence at all into anything that's going on. And the big reason for that is because another member of the coalition, which is the Center Party, say that they don't want to work with the extreme parties, which is basically the furthest left and the furthest right party, which is the Sweden Democrats and the Left Party. Putting the Sweden Democrats and the Left Party on anywhere near the same scale of how bad or extreme they are is ridiculous. It's literally just, oh, they are the furthest away, so therefore they are the most crazy and extremist and radical. And that's kind of how the Center Party functions. However, we got a new lead in the Left Party recently, which was Nooshi Dadgostar. And she's going harder. She isn't going to just be like, okay, we'll support you guys, I guess, and then maybe you'll give us a little bit of policy, a little bit of some crumbs of policy at some point during these 4 years. She was like, you know what? We're not voting for the center-left budget unless we get these things passed. And it was the main thing that the Left Party wanted to get in there was to slightly raise the pensions for the people receiving the lowest amount of pensions in Sweden, which goes without saying, pretty okay policy to do, right? Raise the standard of living of the poorest retired people in Sweden. So pretty cool stuff. They discussed that with the Social Democrats and they got it through. That was going to be in the budget. But then the Center Party, they lost their shit because suddenly the Left Party had gotten some influence. They decided to do the horrible thing of raising the pensions of the poorest retired people in Sweden. So what did the Center Party decide to do? They decided to vote against the center-left budget. And now, as a result of them doing that, of them voting against the center-left budget, the right-wing budget passed, which I think this is the first time in Swedish political history where you have had a like center-left leaning like government with like prime ministers and ministers and stuff, but you've had like a right-wing budget pass where you've had a disconnect between the people in charge and people in the budget. And like what the budget was. Now, the right was very happy about this because that election can't be done. That's the budget for the year. So that's stuck there. Now what happened, however, is that the Green Party, which was part of the government, are then like, hold on, we don't want to have any minister positions. We don't want to like rule Sweden with a right-wing budget. So we're going to step down. And then they stepped down, which meant that the government collapsed as well. And that was the government where Magdalena Andersson, Sweden's first woman prime minister, was part of. Because of that, the government collapsed. And, you know, Magdalena Andersson then stepped down because of it. And that's kind of the story of how this happened. This all happened within the space of, you know, with 7 hours where the new government was elected. They passed the budget. And then, you know, the Green Party stepped down. Now, what it seems like is going to happen is that, again, on Monday, they will run through it again, and the same people will vote, but this time it will just be social democratic people in the ministry. Because the Green Party, they just don't want to be part of the government. They're fine with putting like a center-left like government in charge, though. So what's probably going to happen, unless something unforeseen happens, is that tomorrow, when they vote for it again, Magdalena Andersson will be back as the Swedish Prime Minister. So not only has she become the first woman Prime Minister in Sweden, she also did the Prime Minister speedrun at 6 and 7 hours, but then she also might get the fastest like elected, unelected, re-elected speedrun as well. So she's just collecting all these speedrun records from the Swedish government. She's really going for it here. But yeah, that seems to be what's going to happen on Monday anyway. The center-left coalition is going to, with support for the left party, are going to elect new ministers. It's probably going to be Magdalena Andersson again, but instead of having Green Party ministers as well, it's all going to be Social Democrats, and that's going to pass, and that's going to be it. And you're going to have a Social Democratic government ruling Sweden for a year with a right-wing budget, which is going to be interesting. What my take on this is that fuck the center party and Annie Lööf. It is completely ridiculous to, in the first place, put the left party and the Sweden Democrats anywhere near each other when it comes to like how harmful or how extreme they are. It is purely a virtue signal that is based entirely off of the fact that they are respectively the furthest left and furthest right people in political power right now. Nothing to do with how far right or how far left they actually are in question. And it's also abundantly clear that this mattered so much to the center party that they voted against having a center-left wing budget just because the left party wanted to raise the pensions of the poorest retired people in Sweden. And as a result of that, the center party knew that the budget would fail and that the right-wing budget would pass. And that's what happened. It mattered more to the center party to virtue signal about being the center party that hates all the extremists, that cared more about preventing, you know, or that prioritized the prevention of the increasing of pensions for the poorest retirees and bringing a right-wing budget. That was more important. That's what they chose instead of just being like, okay, poorest retired people, you guys can have a bit more money. It's like, I don't know, virtue signaling at its very finest, where you just place them at the same level for no reason, no real material reason. And even a policy as easy and as agreeable as raising the pensions of the poorest retired people was too much left-wing influence. And so she instead chose to put the Swedish government in a position where it had to accept the right-wing budget because of it. For Annie Lööf, it's more important to, she prefers a right-wing budget to allowing retired people to have a little bit more money. But yeah, that's pretty insane. But regardless of that, hey, the main point of this is explaining the recent speedrun that took place in Swedish political office and say that, hey, more likely than not, she's going to be reelected tomorrow. We're going to have a woman Swedish Prime Minister as well again tomorrow. But yeah, that's all we know at the moment. That's the explanation of the situation. Sweden is in a weird spot. We're probably going to have a social democratic government ruling Sweden with a right-wing budget. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you.